Welcome to my YouTube channel. I will teach you how to think correctly. Not because I am better than you, but because I've walked through the fire of wrong thinking. I've paid the toll, wandered the wilderness of self-deception, and I've found something, not just information, but transformation. This is not about intellect. It's about how you see. You can be a genius with the wrong lens and still crash into a wall at full speed. You see, most people don't think. They react. They absorb. They inherit thoughts like hand-me-downs from a family who never asked where they came from. They confuse noise for wisdom. They confuse movement for progress. But thinking correctly is the difference between a life of distraction and a life of direction. Imagine standing in a room filled with mirrors. Every mirror shows you a distorted version of yourself. One makes you seem too small, another too big. One shows only your scars, another hides them completely. The world is those mirrors. Social media, fear, culture, even your own past, all of them trying to tell you who you are. Thinking correctly is not breaking the mirrors. It's learning to look into them and say, that is not all of me. Real thinking begins with questioning what you've accepted by default. Let me give you a true story. There was a man named Viktor Frankl. He survived the Nazi death camps. Everyone around him was starving, dying, being stripped of their dignity. But he said something that shattered my soul when I first read it. Everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. That is correct thinking. That is taking back power in a powerless world. And now here's the hard truth. Your life right now is a result of the thoughts you've allowed. If you believe that you are unlucky, you will unconsciously sabotage your own success just to prove that belief true. If you think you are undeserving of love, you will push away the people who try to love you. You don't need more motivation. You need more clarity. Correct thinking is not positive thinking. It's not telling yourself everything is okay when it's not. That's delusion. Correct thinking is seeing the storm and steering through it, not pretending the clouds are blue. It's asking yourself better questions. What does this pain teach me? Who would I be without this fear? What would I attempt if failure weren't fatal? Let me speak directly to the part of you that's tired. The part that's failed a few too many times. That says, maybe this is just who I am. That's not who you are. That's who you've settled to be. Correct thinking begins when you stop worshiping your past and start building your future. You are not your memories. You are your choices. You want transformation? Start with this. Think of your thoughts like seeds. Every day you're planting them. The angry ones, the hopeful ones, the ones whispered to you by people who never built anything. You don't get to skip the harvest. You will eat the fruit of your thinking. Plant something better today. Your mind is a garden. Tend to it like your future depends on it, because it does. And finally, remember this. You are not too far gone. You are not too late. You are not too broken. You are only one correct thought away from a better life. One shift, one perspective, one brave act of questioning everything you've assumed. So, no, I will not hype you up. I will teach you how to think, because hype fades. But clarity creates a legacy. Question what you've accepted by default. This is the beginning of freedom. Not the kind of freedom that's handed to you, but the kind you fight for within yourself. Most people live in a prison they never see, built not of steel bars, but of assumptions, inherited beliefs, hand-me-down narrative. They wake up, live out routines, chase goals, respond to problems, all based on thoughts they never chose for themselves. They just absorb them like a sponge in a dirty sink. When you were a child, you didn't get to choose how you viewed the world. You were given lenses by your parents, your teachers, your environment, and you looked through those lenses without knowing they were even there. If you were told the world is dangerous, You lived cautiously. If you were told you were not enough, you learned to shrink. If you were told life is hard, you expected pain. And the most dangerous thing, you thought it was your belief. But it wasn't. It was installed. Just like software on a computer, it ran in the background. You may not remember when it was downloaded, but you know the effects. You know the hesitation you feel when you try to take a risk. You know the quiet voice that says, "Who do you think you are?" You know the inner resistance when you get too close to a breakthrough? That's the programming. And you can't change your life until you challenge it. Let's say someone grows up poor, not just financially, but poor in mindset. They hear money doesn't grow on trees, or people like us don't get ahead, or the system is rigged. These thoughts take root. They don't just describe reality, they create it. This person may get opportunities later in life, but they will unconsciously sabotage them because the internal script still says, you don't belong here. And because they never question the belief, it becomes prophecy. Now imagine someone who was told, you're so smart all their life. It sounds positive, right? But if that person begins to fear failure because they don't want to lose that identity, they may avoid challenges. They may only attempt things they already know they're good at. Growth requires risk, but protecting the label of smart becomes more important than learning. Again, it's a script running in the background, never questioned, just obeyed. Default thinking is seductive because it's familiar. It doesn't demand effort. It doesn't require confrontation. It feels like truth even when it's a lie. And the more times you repeat a thought, the more your brain wires itself to accept it as fact. You don't even need proof, just repetition. That's why questioning your assumptions isn't just helpful, it's vital. It's the only way to find out if you're living your life or someone else's. Think about culture. The world tells you how to define success, beauty, masculinity, femininity, purpose. You see it in movies, in ads, in songs. But how often do you stop and ask, do I agree with that? Or better, does this belief serve me? Most never do. They adopt the mainstream story that success looks like money, that happiness is stuff, that aging is something to fear, that rest is laziness, that vulnerability is weakness. But all these beliefs are only true if you don't question them. Take, for example, the idea that you have to find your passion. People waste years searching for it like it's a buried treasure, never realizing that passion isn't found, it's built through effort, through commitment, through showing up. But if you never question the idea that it's supposed to arrive like lightning from the sky, you'll stay stuck, waiting, not moving, not building anything. Or think about the way society treats failure. Most people avoid it like a disease. They fear it, hide from it, feel ashamed by it. But why? Who said failure was something to be ashamed of? If you dig into history, some of the greatest inventions, stories, and leaders were born out of failure. Yet somewhere along the way, most were taught that mistakes mean you're broken. That's a belief, nothing more. But if it remains unchallenged, it becomes your cage. Even your self-image is mostly inherited. The way you see yourself is rarely built from the ground up. You were told things, some directly, some subtly. You're too loud, you're not creative, you're not athletic, you're too emotional. And over time, you accepted these labels. You became the echo of someone else's opinion. What if none of those things were ever true? What if the person who said them was projecting their own insecurities? Let's go deeper. Think about fear. Not just the fear of death or danger, but the quieter fears, fear of being seen, fear of failing publicly, fear of being alone, fear of not being enough. Where did those come from? Did you choose them? Or did they grow inside you like weeds in a garden no one tended? That's the power of questions. They act like flashlights in a dark attic. You start shining them on thoughts that have been collecting dust for years. You don't have to accept a thought just because it's old. You don't have to carry beliefs that no longer help you. You are allowed to renovate your mental house, tear down walls, open up space, bring in light. This is why journaling can be powerful. Not because it's trendy, but because writing forces you to confront your thoughts. When you write, "I'm not good enough," you can stop and ask, who told me that? When did I start believing it? Is it actually true? And if it's not, you can replace it. Not with a fantasy, but with a better truth, a chosen one. Even religion, even tradition, even sacred ideas should be questioned, not to destroy them, but to own them. Faith that has never been tested is not faith, it's inheritance. Conviction that was never examined is not strength, it's imitation. Correct thinking demands that you ask why you believe what you believe. And yes, it's uncomfortable. Questioning your defaults feels like walking on unsteady ground. It can feel like betrayal of your family, your culture, your past self. But it's not betrayal, it's awakening. You don't honor your past by blindly repeating it. You honor it by growing from it. Some people will resist your new thinking. They'll say you've changed, that you're too different, that you're too radical, too rebellious, too independent. But remember this, you do not owe anyone the maintenance of a version of you that no longer fits. You are allowed to evolve. The mind is not a container, it's a garden. And not everything that grows there was planted with care. Some things were thrown in by accident, others were planted by people who didn't know any better. But now the garden is yours. You are the caretaker, the gardener, and questioning what's growing is the beginning of tending it well. You are not your memories, you are your choices. Most people live like they are the sum of what happened to them. They wear their past like a second skin, convinced that the story already written is the only story they can live. But your memories are not your identity. They are part of your history, not your destiny. You are not the echo of what has been, you are the architect of what will be. Memory is a tricky thing. It feels real like a recording, but it's not. It's a story your brain tells you, filtered through emotion, interpretation, and repetition. What you remember isn't just what happened, it's how you felt when it happened, how you interpreted it, and what meaning you attached to it. Two people can live through the same event and carry away completely different memories. Why? Because memory isn't fact, it's filtered, it's fluid. But choices, those are different. Choices are made in the now. They are the present tense of power. You cannot go back and relive the past, but you can always choose how you show up today. That is where your life is built, in the thousands of small, deliberate, or unconscious decisions you make every day. The decision to speak up or stay silent, to forgive or to carry bitterness, to try again or to give up. Each one shapes the path beneath your feet. There are people who spend their whole lives circling the same mountain of memory. They replay the betrayal. They revisit the failure. They re-experience the trauma. And every time they do, they make the same unconscious choice to stay there. Not because they want to suffer, but because it's familiar. The past, no matter how painful, becomes a kind of home. But just because a feeling is familiar doesn't mean it's true. Just because a wound is old doesn't mean it still needs to bleed. Imagine walking through a museum. Every painting is a moment from your life. Some are beautiful, some are dark, some are unfinished. Now imagine picking one painting, the most painful one, and setting up a bed in front of it. You live there. You sleep, eat, and breathe in front of that one memory. Day after day, that's what happens when you let your memories define you. You stop walking through the museum, you stop growing, you mistake one frame for the whole story. But life is not a museum. It's a road. And the road is shaped by your steps, not your photographs. You are not the child who was neglected. You are not the teen who was laughed at. You are not the partner who was left. You are not the failure, the addict, the dropout, the disappointment. Those are things that happen to you. But you are the one who gets to choose what those events mean. You get to say, that hurt me, but it did not finish me. Or that broke me, but I rebuilt stronger. You don't need permission to reframe your past. You need courage. Every day you are offered the opportunity to shift, to choose again. Even if you made a mistake yesterday, even if you lost your temper, stayed in bed, said the wrong thing, you get to choose today. That's not a cliche, it's the truth. The human mind is neuroplastic. Your thoughts, habits, and even your emotional patterns can be rewired, but not through memory, through choice. Sometimes people confuse who they were with who they are. They say things like, I'm just not disciplined, or I've always been bad with relationships, or I never finish what I start. These are identities built on memory. They are conclusions, not truths. But what if you stopped telling that version of your story? What if you said instead, until now, I've struggled with discipline, or in the past I made poor relationship choices, or I'm learning how to follow through. That subtle shift, those few words transform memory into motion. They move you from fixed identity to growth identity, from past to possibility. Let me tell you about a man named Louis Zamperini. He was an Olympic athlete who became a prisoner of war in World War II. He endured unthinkable torture. He could have become a bitter, broken man. Many did, but when he returned home, he chose forgiveness. He forgave his captors. He rebuilt his life. He didn't erase the pain, but he chose a path that wasn't dictated by it. That is the power of choice over memory. Memory says, this is how it's always been. Choice says, but this is what I will do now. One of the greatest illusions people carry is that they need to feel ready to make better choices. They wait for motivation, for clarity, for a perfect moment. But readiness is a lie. Waiting for the past to stop hurting before you move forward is like waiting for the rain to stop in the middle of the ocean. Healing is not what precedes action. Often, it's what follows it. You don't need to feel ready. You need to decide. Choices don't have to be massive to be meaningful. Choosing to take the walk instead of scrolling. Choosing to send the text instead of ghosting. Choosing to breathe before responding. Choosing to try again. These are not just small acts, they are bricks. And brick by brick, you are building your next chapter. Let's go deeper. Some people carry good memories like anchors. They talk about the good old days, reliving a season of their life when they felt alive, successful, or loved. They use that memory as a measuring stick for the present, and everything now falls short. They compare today's struggle to yesterday's high, and they find today lacking. But this too is a trap. Just as you are not your pain, you are not your peak. You are not stuck at your best. You are not frozen in your highlight reel. You are still becoming, and no memory, good or bad, gets to limit your becoming. Think about the word remember. It means to bring something back into your mind, to piece it together again. But it also implies that what was remembered had been dismembered, broken, separated. When you remember who you really are, not just what happened to you, you bring your selfhood back together. And the truest version of you is not a replay. It's a response. It's how you choose to show up in the now with the knowledge of the past, but not the chains of it. Here's the hard truth. Sometimes the people who know you best are the worst at seeing your growth. They still think of you as who you were. They relate to your old choices, not your new mindset. But you are not obligated to be consistent with a version of you that no longer exists. You are allowed to outgrow even the people who helped shape you, especially if they only relate to you through your wound. To choose differently, you must think differently. That means guarding your mental inputs. You can't keep feeding your mind with content that confirms your limitations and expect your choices to change. If you constantly consume negativity, fear, outrage, or cynicism, your choices will reflect that. Not because you're weak, but because you're human. Your choices are the fruit. Your thoughts are the root. If you want different outcomes, plant different seeds. The most revolutionary thing you can do is pause before you act. That gap, the moment between stimulus and response, is sacred. That's where your power lives. Not in reacting automatically, but in choosing deliberately to speak love instead of sarcasm, to take the higher road instead of the easier one, to do the right thing when no one is watching. These choices become your character. They become your future. And that's what it means to live above your memory. To live from a place of decision, not repetition. You stop saying, this is just who I am, and start asking, who do I want to be and what choices will take me there? You stop arguing for your limitations and start designing your transformation. Not overnight, not in one big leap, but step by step, choice by choice, thought by thought. Your thoughts are seeds, plant with intention. Every day you're planting something, whether you're aware of it or not. Your mind is a garden, and your thoughts are the seeds that grow into your reality. The trouble is, most people never pause to consider what they're planting. They don't think about the long-term harvest. They simply react to the weather of the day. Fear, pressure, desire, anger, and let those impulses scatter seeds into the soil of their mind. Then months or years later, when weeds have overtaken their peace, they wonder how it happened. But nothing grows without a seed. Every result, every pattern, every outcome, visible or invisible, started with a thought. It's easy to dismiss thoughts as insignificant, especially because they're invisible. You can't see a thought the way you see a car or a storm, but that's what makes them even more powerful. They operate silently. They work in the background. They influence decisions, shape reactions, build habits, and create emotional weather in your life. What you dwell on, you strengthen. What you repeat, you reinforce. The mind does not differentiate between what's real and what's rehearsed. It believes what it hears most. So when you allow negativity to live rent-free in your mind, it's not just floating there, it's planting itself. And like any seed, it will grow if it's fed. Consider a person who constantly thinks, I'm not good enough. At first it might just be a passing thought, a moment of doubt. But if they think it again tomorrow, and the next day, and the next week it takes root, it becomes more than a feeling, it becomes a filter. They start interpreting situations through that lens. A compliment becomes pity. A challenge becomes proof of inadequacy. A missed opportunity becomes a personal failure. And suddenly, they aren't just thinking they're not good enough. They're living like it. That one thought, left unchecked, became a belief. That belief shaped their decisions, and their decisions built a life that echoed the original lie. Now flip it. Imagine someone who chooses to plant thoughts like, I can grow from this, or I'm not perfect, but I'm capable, or this setback isn't permanent. These aren't delusions, they're chosen seeds. These thoughts create resilience. They invite solutions. They teach patience. And over time, they grow into confidence, not arrogance, not fantasy, but grounded, earned confidence. Again, it all started with a seed. This is why intention matters. A gardener doesn't throw any random seed into the soil and hope for the best. They know what they want to grow. They study the seasons. They remove the weeds. They protect what's fragile. They prune what's overgrown. It's an active process, and your mind deserves that same level of care. Because if you don't choose your thoughts, something else will. The world is full of noise, ads, opinions, fear-based news, social comparisons, all trying to plant something in you. If you are not conscious of your mental soil, you will become a product of everything around you instead of a reflection of what's within you. It's not about fake positivity. It's not about ignoring pain or pretending life is always great. It's about recognizing that every thought is either moving you toward who you want to become or pulling you further away. Even neutral thoughts take up space, and space is limited. So why waste it on thoughts that drain you? Let's talk about repetition. Most people underestimate its power. A single negative thought, like I'm not attractive, may not do much damage on its own. But when repeated 100 times, it forms a groove in the brain. The mind loves efficiency. It builds shortcuts. If you think something often enough, your brain wires it in so that it becomes automatic. You no longer decide to think it, you default to it, and that's dangerous when the thought is harmful. It becomes like an app that opens by itself every time you wake up. You don't even notice it. It just runs. That's why changing your life isn't about big one-time shifts. It's about consistently planting better seeds. And yes, planting new thoughts can feel fake at first. If you've lived 10 years thinking you're a failure, saying I am capable might sound hollow. That's normal. But repetition isn't about immediate belief. It's about rewiring. It's not about pretending you're already there. It's about choosing the direction you want to move toward. A seed doesn't bear fruit on day one. It takes time, sunlight, water, attention. The same is true for the thoughts that build a better life. Let's say someone has always believed that people can't be trusted. Maybe they were betrayed. Maybe they were abandoned. That thought becomes a seed. That seed grows into suspicion, withdrawal, defensiveness. It affects relationships. It confirms itself over and over because people can feel that energy. It pushes them away. And when they leave, the person says, see, I was right. But what they don't see is that their original thought planted the conditions for that outcome. The seed shaped the soil. Changing that doesn't mean trusting everyone blindly. It means planting a different thought. Not everyone will hurt me, or I can learn to trust wisely. That thought leads to different energy, a softer tone, a more open posture. It invites different experiences, and those new experiences water the seed of trust. Over time, trust grows. Again, it started with the choice of what to plant. Fear is another seed that loves to multiply. Think one fearful thought, and it rarely stays alone. It brings friends. What if I fail becomes, what if I'm not cut out for this? Which becomes, what if everyone finds out I'm a fraud? Which becomes, maybe I should just quit. One seed left unguarded became a forest of limitation. That's why awareness is key. You don't need to control every thought, but you do need to notice what's growing. There's also the matter of exposure. Just like seeds need certain conditions to grow, light, temperature, moisture, your thoughts are influenced by your environment. Who are you spending time with? What are you listening to? What are you reading? If you plant good thoughts but surround yourself with negativity, your seeds will struggle. Protecting your environment isn't about arrogance, it's about stewardship. You are responsible for the conditions of your growth. Some thoughts are weeds, old, automatic lies. They've been growing unchecked for years. They don't need your permission. They show up on their own. You're too old. You missed your chance. You don't belong here. Those are not truth. They are weeds. And like any gardener, you need to pull them out by the root. That means confronting them, challenging them, asking, where did this come from? And is this actually true or just familiar? You don't negotiate with weeds. You remove them. And when you remove them, don't leave the space empty. Replace them. If you pull out a thought like I'll always be stuck, replace it with there's always another step forward. If you remove I'm not lovable, replace it with I'm worthy of connection. The soil of your mind won't stay empty for long. Something will grow there. Make sure it's something you chose. The people who transform their lives aren't the ones who never have negative thoughts. They're the ones who refuse to let those thoughts grow unchecked. They take responsibility for their inner landscape. They speak truth over themselves even when it feels awkward. They plant with intention. They understand that mindset isn't about perfection. It's about cultivation. Your most consistent thoughts will always create your most consistent results. They shape how you see opportunities, how you handle rejection, how you respond to setbacks. You can't plant thoughts of scarcity and expect abundance. You can't plant you can't plant fear and reap courage. Nature doesn't work that way. Neither does your mind. Even the quietest thoughts matter. The ones you think right before you fall asleep. The ones that rise when you're alone. The ones you think when no one's looking. They are all seeds. And over time, they will grow roots. They will bear fruit. They will shape your language, your habits, your relationships, your energy. That's the power you hold, whether you recognize it or not. So pay attention to the seeds in your hand. Notice what you're planting today, because what you harvest tomorrow will not be a surprise. It will be the natural outcome of the thoughts you chose to feed. Every great life began as a garden tended with care. Every lasting transformation was born in the soil of intention. Every new future begins in the quiet place where a single conscious thought is planted. Thanks for watching.